Dear Santa, I've been a good girl this year. Today, Mrs. Claus is baking cookies for all the good little boys and girls. Santa's elves are busy wrapping presents. Santa is on his way very soon. So until then, let me share my stories about Santa with you. I call them Tales from Santa's Favorite Elf. They are for children of all ages. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Ho, ho, hello there. Ho, pardon me. That's Santa's line, isn't it? Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Jaqueline, and I'm Santa Claus's favorite elf. Yep, you heard that right. Out of the thousands of us here at the North Pole, I hold that title. Or at least that's what I tell everyone. But shh, don't let Santa hear me say that. Now, you might be wondering, how does one become an elf? Especially one working for Santa Claus. It all started way back when my mom's mom, my dear Granny Tinsel, decided that her family was destined to work for Santa. She was quite the determined elf, let me tell you. She marched right up to Santa's workshop one day with her children in tow and said, "Mr. Claus, sir, this family is at your service." And well, Santa just couldn't resist her spirit. Ever since, every Tinsel descendant has been an elf, and here I am, following in Granny's boot prints. Now, let me tell you something about being an elf. It's not just about wearing pointy shoes and making toys, though those are both pretty fantastic. It's about spreading joy, working hard, and keeping the spirit of Christmas alive for every single child in the world. It's magical, challenging, and oh so fun. But let's not sugarcoat it. We've had our fair share of mishaps along the way. Let me tell you some of my favorite stories. Here at the North Pole, life revolves around the workshop. Imagine the most enormous, sparkliest, most colorful factory you've ever seen, and multiply that by 10. The workshop is a marvel. There are conveyor belts zooming by, tools clinking and clanking, and every toy imaginable being crafted right before your eyes. From teddy bears to rocket ships, we make it all. Of course, the work isn't always smooth. One year, Sparkle the Glitter Elf got a little too enthusiastic while decorating. And let me tell you, glitter is not something you can easily clean up. I'm pretty sure there's still some glitter in Santa's beard from that year. And then there was the Time Dasher, one of the reindeer, snuck into the workshop and got tangled in the garland. He trotted through the toy aisles like he owned the place. Oh, the chaos. But you know, it's those little moments that make life here so special. Every day is an adventure, and every elf has a role to play. My specialty: I'm what you'd call a creative overseer. I help design toys and make sure they're just right for each child. One year, I created a dollhouse with a mini North Pole theme, little ice skating rinks, tiny reindeer, and even a tiny Santa. It was one of my proudest creations. Now, let me tell you about the year I found myself on Santa's sleigh. Oh, what a night that was. It started innocently enough. I had finished up my work early and thought I'd sneak a peek at Santa loading the sleigh. I leaned in just a little too far, and before I knew it, I was wedged between a sack of toys and a big red ribbon. Santa didn't even notice as he climbed aboard and called, "On Dasher, on Dancer." Let me tell you, riding in Santa's sleigh is a thrill like no other. The wind in your hair, the stars twinkling above. It's pure magic. But when we got to our first stop, Santa turned around and said, "Jack," that's what he called me for short. "What in the North Pole are you doing here?" Well, I didn't have much of an answer, so he laughed and said, "I suppose you'd better help me out then." That night I learned just how hard Santa works. At one house, a chimney was too narrow, so I had to wriggle down with the sack of toys. At another, we accidentally woke up a little boy, and Santa had to distract him while I hid behind the tree. It was an unforgettable experience. And by the end of the night, Santa said, "You've earned yourself a spot on my sleigh anytime, Jack." Oh, the memories I've made here. One of my favorites is the time we built a life-size gingerbread house for Mrs. Claus. It smelled so good that half the elves couldn't resist sneaking a bite. And by the time Mrs. Claus saw it, it was missing a whole wall. And then there are the mischievous moments. One time, my friend Jingle and I decided to prank the other elves by swapping the sugar in the kitchen with powdered snow. The cookies that day were, let's just say, interesting. But Santa always says, "A little mischief keeps the Christmas spirit alive." How are you enjoying my stories? Oh, good. Shall I continue then? Okay, I have many. I must tell you about the elves I work with. Each one is as unique as a snowflake. There's Dilly, our resident inventor, who once turned a jack-in-the-box into a snowball launcher just for fun. Crystal is the sweetest elf you'll ever meet, always knitting scarves for the baby polar bears. Then there's Plinksy. Oh, Plinksy. He's the workshop comedian, always pulling pranks, like the time he replaced Santa's cocoa with caramel syrup. And of course, we can't forget Shag, Zaire, and Garland. Each of them adds their own sparkle to life at the North Pole. One year, we were working on a brand new toy, a mechanical dragon that could breathe actual snowflakes. Dilly was in charge, and things were going great. until Plinksy decided the dragon needed to breathe glitter instead. Well, one sneeze from that dragon, and the whole workshop looked like a snow globe. It took days to clean up, but the dragon ended up being one of our most popular toys that Christmas. Life as an elf isn't always snowflakes and candy canes, though. One year, we faced a terrible snowstorm on Christmas Eve. The winds were so strong that the reindeer couldn't fly, and it looked like Christmas might be canceled. But then Shag, who's a bit of a quiet genius, came up with an idea. He built a giant windproof sleigh out of leftover toy parts, and we elves took turns pulling it through the snow. It wasn't easy, but we delivered every last gift that year. Santa said it was the most heartwarming Christmas he'd ever seen. Another time, we had a mix-up in the wish lists. Somehow, all the toys for the children in Australia got sent to the North Pole, and vice versa. Zaire, who's our logistics elf, was beside himself. But Garland, who's the fastest elf in the workshop, came to the rescue. He organized a relay team to resort and deliver the toys just in time. It was a Christmas miracle, and it reminded us all how important teamwork is. Sometimes, our work comes with a bit of heartbreak. I remember a little girl named Mia who wrote to Santa, saying she didn't want any toys for Christmas, just a hug for her mom, who was feeling sad. Santa showed us the letter, and there wasn't a dry eye in the workshop. We decided to do something special. Crystal knitted a blanket. Tilly built a music box that played a lullaby. And I wrote a letter from Santa himself, reminding Mia and her mom how much they were loved. Santa delivered it personally, and later we heard from Mia that her mom smiled for the first time in weeks. That's the kind of magic we live for. And then there was the year we created a toy that changed lives. Plinksy came up with the idea for a stuffed bear named Courage, which could whisper encouraging messages when you hugged it. It was meant to be just another toy, but it turned out to be so much more. Kids all over the world wrote back to us, saying how much courage helped them through tough times. Even Santa teared up when he read those letters. Of course, we elves know how to have fun too. One of my favorite memories is the annual North Pole talent show. Garland did a ribbon dancing routine with Christmas lights, and Plinksy told jokes so funny that even the reindeer were laughing. But the best act of all was Santa himself. He did a tap dance while wearing elf shoes. Let's just say, it's a good thing he sticks to delivering presents. And then there's our annual snowball fight. It's elves versus reindeer, and it gets intense. Last year, Dasher got hit so many times that he refused to pull the sleigh for an hour. But don't worry, we made it up to him with extra peppermint oats. Would you like me to continue telling you my stories? Oh yes, I'd love to write about it all one day, in a big elves Christmas storybook. That would be great. Now, if you think elves are always serious and hard-working, let me tell you about the time we had the great cookie heist. Mrs. Claus is famous for her cookies, crisp on the edges, soft in the middle, and always perfectly frosted. Every year, she bakes a giant batch for Santa and the elves to enjoy on Christmas Eve. Well, last year, Plinksy decided he couldn't wait until Christmas Eve to get a taste. He convinced Shag and Garland to help him liberate the cookies from Mrs. Claus's kitchen. Their plan was elaborate. Plinksy distracted Mrs. Claus by accidentally knocking over a bag of flour. Shag stood lookout, and Garland was supposed to sneak in and grab the cookies. Sounds foolproof, right? Wrong. Garland tripped over a rolling pin, landed face first in a tray of frosting, and sent the entire tray of cookies flying into the air. Mrs. Claus turned around just in time to see Garland, covered in frosting, holding the one unbroken cookie like it was a trophy. And you know what? Mrs. Claus just laughed and said, "If you wanted cookies that badly, all you had to do was ask." Then she made them clean the kitchen while she baked a fresh batch. But here's the best part. She added a sign to the cookie jar that said, "For good elves only." Plinksy swears it's aimed directly at him. Okay, I'll tell you one more story. One Christmas, Santa decided he needed a vacation after the big night, so he left me in charge of the workshop. I thought, how hard can it be? Well, let me tell you, it was chaos from the start. Plinksy accidentally triggered the Nutcracker assembly line, and we had toy soldiers marching everywhere. Crystal's knitting machine went haywire and covered the floor in scarves. And Garland, he got tangled in a string of lights and ended up looking like a Christmas tree. But in the end, we pulled together and got everything back in order. It was a mess, but it reminded me why I love being an elf. We're family, and we always have each other's backs. I hope you've enjoyed my tales from the North Pole. Life as Santa's favorite elf is never dull, and it's filled with magic, laughter, and love. Now, before I go, let's end with a little North Pole ASMR. Close your eyes and listen to the sounds of the season. Peace, friend. May you have merry days ahead. Until next time, stay kind, stay merry, and never stop believing in the magic of Santa, Santa's favorite elf. Signing off.